My recipe today is the Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte. You call it Black Forest cake or Black Forest cherry cake here. You should definitely plan a little bit of time for this cake, maybe even start a day before you want to enjoy it. So here are the ingredients for the first step for the base cake. You can bake this cake with or without alcohol, and today I will bake it with alcohol. I'm using Kirschwasser, which is translated sherry water. It's not water at all. And yeah, it's a schnapps, and I bought this little bottle at the airport last year in Germany. You can buy it definitely in larger bottles in different brands here in America or anywhere else, I guess. So if you don't want to use alcohol, you can instead use some sweet sherry juice. I'll start with the eggs. I have to use these 7 eggs, which is a lot, and they will be mixed with the sugar and the pinch of salt. And then I will beat it for 20 minutes. So adding the sugar, all of it, and the pinch of salt that you always add when you make something sweet. All right, so as I said, 20 minutes. Sounds like a lot, but you will see why it needs that long. Yes, so this is what it looks like after 20 minutes of beating. Let me show you. This is very, very fluffy. You can see this. Let's see. So there's lots of air in here now. And what I'll do next is I will mix all the dry ingredients, the flour, the starch, also the cocoa, and the baking powder. And I mix this all together. All right. And I've also melted the butter and let it cool again, so it's liquid but not hot. Okay, so time to mix this into the fluffy egg mix. And I will carefully stir this in. I don't want to lose the air that I put into this mass, so that's the tricky part. And I'm also adding the butter. Okay. And I've prepared my baking pan with some butter so that the dough won't stick too much, and once the cake is baked I can take it out without any problems. Also, while I was beating up the eggs, preheating the oven to 190 degrees Celsius, which is 375 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, now adding this here. I'm not sure if you can see this, but you can still see the fluffiness of this dough. Batter. I think it's when it's more liquid. Is it called batter? I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments. So this goes into the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. So here's the baked cake, looks very nice, and I let it cool completely, it's cold now, but I will also put it into the fridge now for 1 hour. This will make it much easier for me to slice this into 3 layers. While the cake is cooling in the fridge, I will boil 20 milliliters of water. That's not very much, you can barely see it here. And I'm also adding 20 grams of sugar. And this will later be mixed with the Kirschwasser and will be used to soak a little bit of the cake layers. And I'm adding the sherry water, Kirschwasser. Okay, I leave a little bit in here. I want to use that for the cream a little later. And this will be set aside. Next I will prepare already the filling for the cake. Now I want to prepare the sherry filling, and there are a couple of things I want to say about that. So I'm using a glass of cherries. I got these at Aldi. I don't know if they are available anywhere else, and I don't always get them at Aldi. So instead of this you could use frozen cherries. You would probably also need to buy some sherry juice, because these glasses with cherries come with the juice in it, while if you buy the frozen ones you will have not enough juice to use this for the filling. If you want to skip this step and take a shortcut, then you can use some tart cherries that come in a can here in America. In my personal opinion, they are too sweet, but you might think differently about it. So that would be an option to make things a little more fast and a little more convenient. However, I will stick to the traditional way to do it and make it from scratch. One more thing about the cherries, they are 24 ounces or 680 grams of them, and they are sour cherries. So I will now divide these from the juice. So I will use the juice and bring it to a boil to thicken it. So I will add some sugar. So I'm using 60 grams of sugar here right now. I tasted the juice before just to see how sweet it is. If you have a very sweet juice that comes with the cherries, then you can use less sugar. I also add the juice of half a lemon, and I stir in 45 grams of cornstarch. In Germany we don't use cornstarch, we use potato starch, but it's basically the same thing, just from different plants, but it does the same. So, and it looks like very milky now, but that will stop and it will become a more clear juice again once it's boiling. Oh, and I also have to add a little bit of cinnamon. It's optional. If you don't like it, leave it out. I like cinnamon. Put it in. Okay, now I have to wait until it boils. And you can see here, it's thickening now. I can already turn this off. Yeah, and you see it's not milky anymore, it's more glossy now. Okay, you see it's very thick. That's what I want. Otherwise it will flow out of the cake later. I don't want that. Okay, let's take this over here. Now my cherries go back into the pot. And this has to cool now, and in order to speed this up a little bit, I will put this into a different bowl right here, so it goes a little faster. Now I'm preparing the cream filling, and for that I will need 700 milliliters of cream, 65 grams of sugar, and I also need some gelatin. And so I'm using 4.5 teaspoons of gelatin powder, which is about the same as 1.5 of these Knox packages here in the US. If you don't have this powdered gelatin, instead you would use these sheets of gelatin, and there you would need 9 sheets of those. Okay, so I'm now putting the gelatin in some water, and I will let it soak a little bit, and then I will heat it up in the microwave. Okay, so you can see it's very liquid now. I set it aside for a little bit because now it's time to beat the cream. Okay. Okay. So I will beat this for a little bit, and then I will little by little add the sugar too. I will now take some of the cream and mix it into the warm liquid of the gelatin. So I don't know what it's like in English, but in Germany you can say gelatine or gelatine, with or without an N. Both is correct, although some people claim that only one of these is correct. Okay, so let me put this back and slowly mix this in. So we now have basically all the components for the filling of the cake finished, and now it's time to cut the cake into layers and fill it with all these delicious things. Now I have to cut this cake twice, so I have 3 layers in the end. And I used to have one of these cake cutting tools that would have made it a little bit easier, but it broke, so I have to do it like this now. Okay, I got my first layer, and I will put this onto the cake plate already. And I'm using these paper stripes in order to keep the mess at bay, so that later when the cake is finished, the cake plate is not dirty or anything. So I'll take this layer, turn it upside down, and put it here. Make sure that these paper stripes cover the edges here. Okay. And I can already start and make the first cake layer with the filling. For that I will need the Kirschwasser and sugar mixture that I have, and if you're not using this and you use the cherry juice instead, you would use this then. So either way, alcohol or cherry juice, you brush it onto the cake. And I can smell the alcohol, the Kirschwasser. It smells very good. We have filled pralines that are filled with alcohol in Germany. Often it's this sherry water. I like that very much. I'm usually not drinking a lot. I'm barely drinking anything actually. But I like those pralines. Okay, so that is the first layer. And I will now take some of the cream, put it in here. You don't have to do it this way, but that's how I like to do it. So I just go around the cake and make a little bit of a rim here. Okay. And now I will put the sherry filling in the center. And some people just make one layer with the cherries, but in my opinion, it should be 2 layers. Okay. Just to, make it a little easier for me to fill this, I will now add this around my cake. If you don't have it, don't worry too much about it. It doesn't have to be there, but it makes things a little bit easier. Okay. So on top of the cherries, I will now have some more cream. Okay, time for the next layer. Put this aside and cut this. Okay. Now I carefully transfer this over. And I repeat the steps from before. I brush this with the alcohol. Now again some cherries. Okay, and again, here comes a layer of cream. Okay, so we have a layer of cake with some alcohol, then on top a layer of cherries, and then a layer of cream, then again a layer of cake with alcohol, a layer of cherries and a layer of cream. And now on top of that comes the last layer of cake, and I have to carefully pull it off here. So this is loose now. But before I put it on top, I want to have the bottom side of the last layer as the top side of the cake. However, I want to have some alcohol in that too, and since the cut open side is easier to brush with the alcohol, I will do this before I put it on top of the cake. Okay. All right. There you go. Wow. It's quite a mess. But here is our half-finished Black Forest cake. So this has to go into the fridge now for at least 4 hours, or even better, overnight. The cake has been in the fridge since yesterday, and I will leave it there for a little bit longer because I want to first prepare the ingredients for the decoration. So here's what I need. Okay, so I'll first whip the cream, and while I'm whipping it, I will put in some stabilizer so that the cream will keep its shape once it's on the cake. Okay, so now this is optional. I have, as you remember, left over a little bit of my Kirschwasser, and I will put a little bit of it in here. Okay, and I set this aside and prepare the chocolate. So I did what I usually never do. I put the chocolate into the fridge. I personally don't think that chocolate belongs into the fridge, but that's one of the few things that my husband and I cannot agree on. I like chocolate at room temperature. Okay, so what I need is some kind of rolled chocolate for the top. And for that I will just use a knife, and you can see it gives me these cute shapes here. And you should use a dark chocolate for this. And after creating these chocolate rolls, I also grate most of the chocolate. This will go to the sides of the cake. Yeah, so here's the cake now. Hasn't changed overnight, but I want to remove this thing here now. There you go. All right. Ta-da! Let me tilt this a little bit so you can see. So this is what it looks from the side. And now it's time to put some cream on the entire cake and cover it completely. Okay, let's move this over here and use this. And I'm not going to stress too much about having some little crumbs on the cream because the chocolate will go on top anyway, and you can't really tell which is chocolate, which is a little bit of a cake crumb. What's also important is that you leave some of the cream so you can decorate the top later also with some little swirls. So I think that looks kind of even, and I will now divide this cake into 12 even slices, and I'm using this tool for it. And let me see what's the center. This will help me later to find the spots for the swirls. Okay, so now I first want to put the chocolate on the sides of the cake. So that's a little bit tricky, but I'll do my best. Yeah, it works better with the hands. By the way, I put the chocolate into the freezer for a couple of minutes. Okay, let me show this to the camera a little bit. So this is what it looks on the outside. I might want to fix a few more spots, but for the most part, it looks pretty good. So now the chocolate rolls that I made earlier, they go here to the center of the cake. I'll spread it a little bit. I've probably more than I need. Okay, that's already enough. Okay, now we are almost there. Now the swirls go on each of these slices. Like this. And now the very last step is to decorate it with cherries. If you have fresh cherries, if it's the season for that, you can of course use fresh cherries. Most of the time though we use these maraschinos, and that's what you usually find in the bakery. So let me get these out. And I go just on top of these little flowers. All right. Doesn't this look pretty? Let me lift this a little bit so you get a better look. So this is the Schwarzwälder Kirschtorte, and it looks fabulous. I will now remove the paper here. So this goes into the fridge now until serving. Looks so good.